Mistress sent affair photos to the pregnant wife. She divorced in tears, but the billionaire left in. At first, everything seemed picture perfect. A billionaire husband with a magnetic charm, a beautiful wife whose heart was brimming with devotion, and an empire that dazzled everyone who looked on. Yet hidden behind the marble walls and glittering soirees was a secret so devastating. It would tear their once happy marriage apart. The mistress, cunning and relentless, held the ace of spades, explicit photos capturing the husband's betrayal, and when she sent them to the unsuspecting wife, the world came crashing down in a spiral of heartbreak. This is a cautionary tale of power, obsession, shattered trust, and the painful regret that followed. Ethan Sinclair was not just another billionaire, he was the billionaire, a prodigy whose business acumen transformed a modest family venture into a sprawling multinational conglomerate. Born into relative comfort, Ethan catapulted the Sinclair name to stardom when he developed cutting-edge technology platforms that disrupted industries ranging from finance to travel. By his 30th birthday, he had become a fixture on the covers of business magazines worldwide. Yet for all his financial triumph, his greatest achievement, he often claimed, was winning the heart of Olivia Mitchell. Unlike the glamorous socialites who competed for his attention at black tie events, Olivia's upbringing was comparatively humble. Her father, Harold Mitchell, was a retired music teacher, and her mother, Claudia, a homemaker who ran a small floral shop in their suburban neighborhood. Olivia majored in literature at a local university, harboring dreams of publishing her own poetry collection one day. She had never aspired to wealth or fame. In fact, if anything, she preferred quiet corners with her beloved books. They met at a charity fundraiser for an orphanage in Brooklyn. Ethan was the star donor, while Olivia volunteered as an event coordinator. She spilled punch on his tailored suit by accident. Mortified, she apologized profusely, but Ethan only laughed. The sparkle in her eyes and her genuine concern caught him off guard. Their conversation that night ran from art to philanthropy to the meaning of success, forging an instant, unlikely bond. A whirlwind courtship followed. Ethan whisked her away on spontaneous helicopter rides over Manhattan, strolled with her through Central Park at midnight, and even took time out of a crucial international deal to fly home early for her birthday. Olivia, in turn, introduced him to a side of life he rarely saw: picnics with her parents, homemade dinners without personal chefs, and hours spent reading to local children at the library. She grounded Ethan in a reality far more genuine than the glitz of his corporate world. They married in an intimate garden ceremony, under twinkling fairy lights, away from the paparazzi's usual haunts. Olivia wore a simple lace gown, Ethan a classic tuxedo. Harold Mitchell walked his daughter down the aisle, tears shining in his eyes. Guests recall that Ethan's vow, "I promise to shield you from all storms, as you have sheltered me from my own ambitions," was so heartfelt it left many wiping tears. The union seemed blessed, and for a time it was. In the early days of their marriage, they supported each other's dreams seamlessly. Olivia began drafting her first poetry collection, while Ethan expanded his company, Sinclair Enterprises, into new horizons. Together, they founded the Sinclair Mitchell Scholarship Program, enabling underprivileged students to pursue higher education. Their dynamic synergy made them a darling couple in philanthropic circles, the self-made billionaire and his compassionate, down-to-earth wife. When Ethan teased Olivia about traveling the world with him, she promised to, as soon as she finished editing her poetry manuscript. He adored her quirks, her need to rearrange the books on their shelf in alphabetical order, or the way she'd hum softly while stirring hot chocolate late at night. He declared to anyone who would listen that marrying Olivia was the best decision of his life. For a moment, it felt like a fairy tale that might never end. But cracks began to form beneath the polished veneer. With the success of Sinclair Enterprises came increasing demands on Ethan's time. The board pressured him to expand internationally, striking new deals in Asia, Europe, and the Middle East. His phone buzzed incessantly with urgent calls, his calendar brimmed with global summits and endless negotiations. Meanwhile, Olivia struggled with her writing. She found it difficult to focus in the penthouse's environment, where staff constantly roamed and the hum of city traffic never ceased. Hoping to find calm, she retreated into philanthropic engagements, organizing library benefits, collaborating with local poets, and volunteering at homeless shelters. Even though Ethan's business soared, he grew more distant. Late-night dinners became routine, with Ethan exhausted from back-to-back meetings. At times, she would wait up for him, only for him to send a last-minute text, "Working late. Don't wait for me." On free weekends, he often hopped on a private jet to meet potential investors in Dubai or Hong Kong. Despite his obvious stress, Ethan's eyes still lit up when he saw Olivia, but those moments were fleeting, overshadowed by endless responsibilities. Occasionally, tensions flared over trivial issues that once seemed insignificant. Olivia disliked how quickly Ethan brushed aside personal time in favor of lucrative deals. He, in turn, felt misunderstood, urging her to see that these deals secure our future. Despite their disagreements, they remained devoted in their own ways. Olivia would slip encouraging notes into his briefcase, reminding him to take breaks, while Ethan tried to sponsor literary events for Olivia's circle of writer friends. Their love remained intact but tested, and it was in this delicate state that a new figure entered the scene, Alicia Harrington, an ambitious marketing executive with a flawless resume and a knack for turning heads. She joined Sinclair Enterprises to lead global branding efforts. What began as a professional collaboration soon crossed boundaries that neither Ethan nor Alicia fully acknowledged until it was too late. Alicia was tall, poised, and radiated a confidence that bordered on arrogance. With a Harvard MBA and stints at international firms, she impressed everyone with her strategic acumen. But behind that polished exterior lay a woman who coveted power, and she spotted an opening in Ethan's life, particularly in his marriage's growing distance. At first, her interactions with Ethan seemed purely professional. They traded ideas about rebranding campaigns and new market penetrations. Alicia's suggestions often garnered immediate results, which Ethan appreciated. In private, he teased her about her unwavering drive, as if glimpsing a reflection of his younger self. Alicia, for her part, flattered him, praising his vision and empathizing with the lonely burden of leadership. Though Ethan cared for Olivia deeply, he found it refreshing to talk shop with someone who matched his corporate fervor. Alicia found subtle ways to make him linger, an after-work coffee to discuss an upcoming launch, or an impromptu brainstorming session during a late evening at the office. If Olivia texted or called during those times, Ethan often ignored it, assuming it could wait. But the illusions of harmless camaraderie eroded when a corporate event in Paris led to a casual dinner, which led to a walk along the Seine and a stolen kiss. Guilt gnawed at Ethan's conscience, yet the excitement of Alicia's brazen confidence and their shared ambition pulled him closer. When they returned to New York, their clandestine meetings continued, sealed by hushed phone calls and fleeting touches in hidden corners of the office. Ethan tried to rationalize the affair. "It's just physical," he told himself. "Olivia is my real love." But Alicia wanted more. As she inserted herself deeper into his life, she realized that if she played her cards right, She could occupy a space beyond a mere fling. With each passing day, the cracks in Ethan's marriage to Olivia widened gaps Alicia was eager to exploit. Life in the Sinclair penthouse took on a tense hush. Olivia sensed a shift in Ethan's behavior before she had any tangible proof of his betrayal. He was more guarded, often avoiding eye contact when she asked about his day. He became defensive whenever she inquired about his late nights. Where once he spoke freely of upcoming deals, he now resorted to vague references about company obligations. Despite her nagging instincts, Olivia tried to trust him. She knew the business expansion demanded tremendous energy. She also remembered the times he'd shown up with small surprises, like the cappuccino from her favorite cafe, or a rare first-edition novel of her favorite poet, Derek Walcott. She clung to these gestures as evidence that her husband still cared, determined to dismiss the creeping sense that something was amiss. Yet the city's social circles buzzed with rumors. At a recent gala for the Metropolitan Museum of Art, a friend of Olivia's, Clarissa Bingham, whispered that Ethan and Alicia had been seen together, looking far too cozy at a swanky lounge downtown. Olivia refused to believe it, chalking it up to vicious gossip targeting the billionaire couple. But the whispers multiplied. Even the tabloids ran photos of Ethan and Alicia stepping out of a private elevator, though they framed it as standard corporate outings. Trying to quell her doubts, Olivia invited Ethan to a romantic weekend trip to their beach house in the Hamptons. To her surprise, he agreed, and they drove out together, leaving the city's frenetic energy behind. For a fleeting moment, the two rediscovered the love that first bound them. They walked barefoot along the shore, held hands during sunset, and reminisced about that long-ago night of spilled punch. Ethan's walls lowered, and he admitted he felt overwhelmed by managing global expansions. Olivia promised to support him however she could. That single weekend felt like a fragile promise of reconciliation, but upon their return, Alicia ramped up her presence. She insisted she and Ethan finalize a strategic branding project for Asia, requiring multiple work dinners and extended hours at the office. Each urgent request ate into Ethan's personal time. Soon, Olivia was once again falling asleep alone in the penthouse, her calls to Ethan going straight to voicemail. Behind the scenes, Alicia's patience had run thin. She realized that despite their nights of passion, Ethan hesitated to fully commit to her. The final straw came when she discovered that he'd spent the weekend in the Hamptons with Olivia, a romantic getaway Alicia believed should have been with her. Fueled by envy, she told her best friend, Fiona Reyes, "I'm done waiting. If Ethan won't make a choice, I'll force his hand." A plan took shape in Alicia's mind. If Ethan refused to openly leave Olivia for her, perhaps she could sabotage the marriage entirely. She began discreetly collecting evidence of their affair: photos, text messages, receipts for secret rendezvous. Her confidence soared, certain that once Olivia saw these incriminating pieces, the resulting shock would tear them apart. And if Olivia divorced Ethan, Alicia reasoned, what would stop him from making her the next Mistress Sinclair? As Alicia orchestrated her plan, Ethan remained in denial. He convinced himself that everything was under control, that no one would find out, and that he could juggle two worlds indefinitely. Yet destiny spun its wheels with a vengeance, preparing a catastrophic collision that would forever alter the Sinclair marriage and the illusions each party clung to. It happened on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, a day that began like any other. Olivia was at home editing the final proofs of her poetry manuscript, eager to finalize it for submission. The patter of rain against the floor to ceiling windows provided a soothing backdrop. She thought about messaging Ethan, but decided to wait until after work hours. He hated being distracted in meetings. Around noon, the doorman called to say a courier had arrived with an urgent envelope for Miss S. Sinclair. Thinking it might be something related to her poetry or a philanthropic event, Olivia headed downstairs to retrieve it. The courier, wearing a dark jacket, handed her a plain brown envelope with no return address, then left without a word. She opened it in the living room, curiosity turning to dread as she realized it contained printed photographs. The first showed Ethan sitting in a plush restaurant booth, with Alicia leaning toward him intimately. The next depicted them kissing in a dimly lit corridor. Subsequent images were even more explicit. Ethan and Alicia leaving a hotel, arms wrapped around each other, obviously in the flush of passion. Accompanying the photographs was a short note scrawled in red ink, "Ask him about us." For several minutes, Olivia couldn't breathe. The world seemed to tilt, the edges of her vision blurring as she tried to process what she was seeing. Every photo hammered home the truth. Ethan was having an affair. This wasn't gossip or rumor. It was undeniable evidence. Her stomach twisted with nausea, her eyes burned, and her hands trembled so violently she nearly dropped the envelope. Devastated, she called Ethan's phone repeatedly, but it went to voicemail. She left a single message, voice quivering, "Ethan, I need you to come home, right now." Then she collapsed on the sofa, tears flowing freely. Fragments of their life together flashed through her mind: wedding vows, laughter on a beach, quiet moments cooking dinner, the philanthropic projects they championed, all overshadowed by these cruel images. Hours passed in agony before Ethan finally stepped through the door, drenched from the rain, clearly irritated. "What's so urgent?" he demanded, removing his coat. "I was in the middle of an important meeting. Couldn't this wait?" Olivia didn't speak. She simply handed him the envelope and watched as his face changed from annoyance to horror. His eyes darted between the photos, then up to meet her gaze. He tried to form words, but they stuck in his throat, silence stretched, thick and suffocating. She finally managed. "How long?" Her voice was frigid, each word laced with heartbreak. Ethan swallowed hard. "Olivia, she snapped. "Don't bother lying. You're with her, aren't you? These photos, why would someone send them to me?" He closed his eyes, shame crashing over him. "I'm sorry. I never meant for you to find out like this." Anger and sorrow battled within her. "You're sorry I found out, or you're sorry you did it." He tried to approach her, arms outstretched in a feeble attempt to comfort. "I still love you. It just happened." She stepped back, tears streaking her face. "No, it didn't just happen. You chose it. Chose her." A bitter laugh escaped her lips. "All this time I thought we just needed to reconnect, that we could fix things. Meanwhile, you were with Alicia behind my back." "Let me explain," he pleaded. "I love you, Olivia. I swear this." She cut him off, voice shaking. "I don't want to hear it." Turning on her heel, she fled to the bedroom, slamming the door. In that moment, Ethan understood that a monumental shift had just occurred. This was no petty argument. The sanctity of their marriage had been shattered, and he had no clue how to piece it back together. As the storm within the Sinclair penthouse raged, Alicia Harrington watched from a distance, confident her plan was unfolding exactly as intended. She had personally arranged for those photographs to be delivered to Olivia. Having grown tired of Ethan's hemming and hawing about leaving his wife, she believed forcing Olivia to see the affair was the quickest route to a breakup. And once Olivia was out of the picture, Alicia reasoned, Ethan would have no choice but to stay with her. Yet, Alicia's victory felt hollow. While she had expected Olivia's devastation, she hadn't quite anticipated the depth of Ethan's guilt and self-loathing. That very night, as he sat alone in his office, nursing a tumbler of whiskey, Alicia called him. Instead of relief, she heard despair in his voice. "Why would you do that?" Ethan demanded, sounding broken. Alicia feigned innocence. "Do what? I have no idea what you're talking about." He slammed his fist against the desk. Don't lie to me, Alicia. Who else would send those photos to Olivia? A tense silence, then Alicia's tone hardened. I had to make you see reason. You were never going to tell her. This charade couldn't go on forever. She deserved the truth, didn't she? Ethan's breath shook, anger and regret tangling in his chest. So you ambushed her? My wife, the woman I promised to protect. How could you be so cruel? Cruel? Alicia shot back. I've been patient, Ethan. Months of stolen weekends, watching you pretend you still had a perfect marriage. I won't be sidelined anymore. They lapsed into another silence. Alicia pressed on, voice steely. Now that everything's out, we can move forward. You'll divorce her, and we can finally be together in the open. Ethan recoiled at her words. For the first time, he saw Alicia's ambition laid bare. I never promised you that, he whispered. I never said I'd leave Olivia. Her voice turned cold. It's your only choice now. Olivia will divorce you, she's no fool. And I won't accept living in the shadows. You can't have both of us. With that, she ended the call, leaving Ethan alone in a sea of turmoil. He stared out the window, city lights twinkling mockingly, reminding him of the empire he'd built. An empire he now risked losing. Corporate deals, philanthropic endeavors, none of that gave him comfort. He realized with growing dread that Alicia had orchestrated the perfect trap by forcing the affair into the open. She had made it nearly impossible for him to salvage his marriage. But another part of Ethan simmered with anger at her manipulation. He understood that Alicia might be talented, yes, but she was also calculating, willing to crush others for her own gain. He felt used, even if he was complicit in the affair. For the first time since it began, he saw clearly that his fling with Alicia was less about love and more about excitement, power, and a momentary escape from the strains of married life. Meanwhile, Olivia prepared to take the hardest step of her life. She locked herself in the guest bedroom, ignoring Ethan's pleas through the locked door. As dawn broke, she packed a small suitcase, refusing to meet his eyes. Without a word, she summoned the elevator and left. Over the next few days, she sought solace at her parents' modest home in Connecticut, collapsing into her mother's arms in tears, confessing it all. Harold Mitchell, once so proud of his wealthy son-in-law, was livid. Claudia tried to remain calm but couldn't hide her heartbreak. "We trusted him," she whispered, voice cracking. If Alicia thought her victory was complete, she overlooked one crucial truth. Heartbreak often transforms people in unpredictable ways. In forcing Ethan's hand, she had also stirred his conscience, lighting a fuse that would ultimately endanger her own ambitions. For regret, once awakened, can be more potent than desire. Days stretched into a week of seething pain for Olivia. She moved about her parents' house in a daze, her eyes often swollen from crying. Harold and Claudia gave her space, occasionally urging her to eat, but she rarely touched her food. She replayed every moment of her marriage in her head, wondering when Ethan had stopped loving her, or if he ever truly had. Even though a part of her still yearned for him, she knew she couldn't remain in a marriage built on deception. Piling on the torment, tabloids exploded with headlines, Sinclair billionaire's alleged affair exposed. Paparazzi lingered around the suburban neighborhood, snapping pictures of a distraught Olivia stepping onto the porch. Clarissa Bingham, the socialite who had first warned Olivia about rumors, was sympathetic. "I'm so sorry, dear," she wrote in a text. "If you need anything, let me know." But no amount of sympathy fixed the betrayal. After a particularly restless night, Olivia decided she had to face Ethan officially. She phoned a reputable divorce attorney, Marcia Rowland, recommended by a close friend. Marcia listened carefully to her story and suggested that step one was a direct conversation about divorce terms. "At some point, Miss Sinclair, if you choose to keep the name, you'll have to meet him. We can't finalize anything without a discussion." Olivia's throat tightened. She'd known this was coming, but hearing it stated plainly felt like a physical blow. I want no contact, she insisted. I don't even want his money. I just want out. Marcia's voice remained calm. I understand the sentiment, but be careful. You contributed to his success, provided emotional support, and set up philanthropic structures together. It's within your rights to seek a fair settlement. Olivia's tears welled again. Fine, she managed. Whatever you think is best. A meeting was arranged at Marcia's office in Midtown. Ethan arrived first, looking haggard, dark circles under his eyes. He seemed to have aged a decade in a single week. Clad in a tailored suit, he emanated tension rather than confidence. Marcia ushered them into a private conference room, her calm demeanor reminiscent of a skilled diplomat. The moment Olivia entered, Ethan rose, but she refused to meet his gaze. She seated herself opposite him at the long table. Marcia began by stating the purpose of the meeting discussion of a potential divorce settlement. Before she could proceed, Ethan interjected, voice trembling. "Olivia, please, can't we talk privately first? I made a mistake, a massive one, but I don't want to lose you." She stared at the polished tabletop. "It's too late," she whispered, her voice laced with betrayal. "I can't trust you again, Ethan." He reached across the table, but she pulled away. "I never wanted this," he insisted, anguish carving lines into his features. "I was an idiot letting Alicia get close. It was about business, then turned into something else. It was. I don't even have an excuse. But I do love you, stop." Her voice quivered. "If you loved me, you wouldn't have done this." Silence settled, thick and oppressive, until Marcia respectfully cleared her throat. "We should address settlement specifics. Miss S. Sinclair, Olivia, how do you wish to proceed?" "I want a clean break," Olivia said firmly, though tears glistened in her eyes. "We can discuss the philanthropic programs we started. I want those to continue, but I don't want anything else from him." Ethan's eyes flashed with despair. "Don't say that. I want to protect you, even if you can't forgive me. I want you to have financial security." "I'm not your charity case," she snapped, swirling with pain. "I was your wife." Marcia gently pivoted to legalities, explaining that a divorce could be filed on grounds of adultery, which would make settlement negotiations more straightforward. Ethan agreed to sign anything to expedite the process. His contrition was raw, and he saw no point in prolonging her agony. The meeting ended with tears in Olivia's eyes and desperation in Ethan's. As they left the building, Ethan tried one last time to talk to her. Standing on the sidewalk, buffeted by city noises, he pleaded, "Olivia, I regret every moment I hurt you. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but if there's any chance—" She shook her head, tears sliding down her cheeks. "There isn't," she whispered. "Goodbye, Ethan." News of the impending divorce exploded across media outlets. Sinclair divorce, billionaire's marriage crumbles amid infidelity. The tabloids had a field day, photographing a tearful Olivia exiting Marcia Rowland's law office and capturing Ethan's haunted expression as he sped away in a limousine. Social media erupted, with hashtags like #SinclairScandal trending worldwide. Armchair observers debated whether Olivia would walk away with a massive settlement or if Ethan's affair signaled a deeper corporate meltdown. Investors in Sinclair Enterprises fretted over potential reputational damage, spurring a drop in the company's stock price. Board members hounded Ethan for reassurance, but he was too consumed by personal remorse to manage the crisis effectively. The next days were torture for him. Alone in his penthouse, once filled with Olivia's laughter, he roamed from room to room, haunted by her presence. He recalled how they'd slow danced in the living room after a successful charity event, or how she'd curl up with a book by the window. Now every corner was saturated with memories and regret. Alicia tried to reassert her place in his life. She sent messages, called repeatedly, even showed up at his office with coffee. But Ethan was no longer dazzled by her. If anything, he resented her for the cold calculation that had brought everything to light. In a heated confrontation one morning, she cornered him after a corporate meeting. "Ethan, you haven't responded to my calls," she said, trying to keep her voice calm despite her frustration. "We need to discuss the future." He fixed her with a weary stare. "There is no future for us, Alicia. You destroyed my marriage, and I let you. But it ends here." She bristled, crossing her arms. "I gave you everything you needed: support, strategic insights, and genuine affection. And you blame me?" He wanted to laugh bitterly. "You orchestrated sending those photos to my wife. You forced this confrontation. Now I've lost Olivia, and I have no illusions that you did it out of love. You did it for your own ambition, a flare of anger. You think I'm just some power-hungry opportunist?" He stepped away, voice hollow. "I think you knew exactly what you were doing, and I hate myself for ever letting it happen." For the first time since the affair began, Alicia realized that Ethan would never see her as a genuine partner. Her plan had backfired. While she may have succeeded in tearing Ethan and Olivia apart, she had lost his trust and affection in the process. She stormed out of the office in a cloud of fury, leaving Ethan to sink deeper into self-loathing. Amid this chaos, Olivia quietly finalized her divorce proceedings. Marcia hammered out a settlement that granted Olivia continued oversight of their joint philanthropic ventures, but little else. She made it clear she didn't want to be tied financially to Ethan any more than necessary. She moved out of her parents' house, hoping to find independence in a modest apartment in Brooklyn. Her close friend, Annika Monroe, helped her search for places and supported her emotionally. In the wake of heartbreak, Olivia found herself ironically freer than she'd been in years. Freed from the expectations of being the perfect billionaire's wife, she decided to focus on her writing again, channeling her anguish into poetry that crackled with raw emotion. She was determined to reclaim her identity, even if it meant forging a new path in the wreckage of her marriage. Even as the divorce advanced, Ethan battled a storm of regret and emptiness. He struggled at the helm of Sinclair Enterprises, normally a role he relished. His executive team and board members whispered about his erratic behavior, cancelled meetings, and overall disengagement. The media's ceaseless coverage only worsened matters. While his net worth remained astronomical, the intangible pillars of respect and stability were eroding. One early morning, he found himself at the office, slumped over his mahogany desk. Papers about mergers and expansions lay untouched as he scrolled through old photos on his phone, images of him and Olivia smiling at a charity event, selfies on a yacht trip, snapshots from their wedding day. The pain was suffocating. In that moment, he realized just how much Olivia had been the anchor of his life. "How could I have been so blind?" he muttered. His personal assistant, Jordan Turner, hesitantly knocked on the open door. "Sir, are you all right?" Ethan rubbed his tired eyes. "I'm fine, Jordan." Jordan stepped in, voice low with concern. "Forgive me for speaking out of turn, but you haven't been yourself. The team is worried. You have a conference call with the Tokyo branch in 10 minutes. Should I reschedule?" Ethan let out a shaky breath. No, I'll handle it." He paused, suddenly feeling a surge of responsibility. "I built this company. I can't let it collapse." He nodded at Jordan. "Thank you." Throughout that day, Ethan forced himself to function, attending video conferences and discussing potential deals. Yet even in moments of relative normalcy, a hollow ache pervaded. He realized that the single-minded pursuit of success had contributed to neglecting the one thing he should have cherished most: his marriage. Meanwhile, in her new Brooklyn apartment, Olivia gradually picked up the fragments of her life. She leased a small place on a quiet street lined with brownstones. It was a far cry from the luxurious penthouse, but it offered her a sense of peace. she desperately needed. Surrounded by her beloved books, she immersed herself in writing. Poetry became her solace, each line a confession of heartbreak, betrayal, and the faint glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, she could find herself again. Her parents visited occasionally, bringing homemade meals and moral support. Harold Mitchell looked around her humble living space and said softly, "Olivia, we want to help you financially. You shouldn't have to struggle. Let us." She shook her head, gently refusing. "I'm all right, Dad. This is my choice. I need to stand on my own." He sighed, eyes brimming with compassion, but he respected her wish. Claudia hugged her daughter, tears in her eyes, wishing she could soothe this hurt. After they left, Olivia found a small envelope on her table. Her father must have slipped in some cash anyway. She smiled wryly. Parents never stop caring, she thought. Occasionally, social media bombarded Olivia with sensational headlines about the billionaire's fall, featuring pictures of Ethan looking distraught or Alicia gliding into exclusive events. She tried to avoid reading them, but sometimes it was impossible to escape. The pang of seeing Ethan so broken tugged at her heart despite everything he'd done. Yet the anger and betrayal lingered, a constant reminder that he had shattered her trust. During these lonely nights in Brooklyn, she poured her soul into verse, capturing her internal battle. "I still taste your memory in the hush of midnight, but the flavor has soured, leaving echoes that burn." She wrote until her eyes blurred, letting tears blot the ink. In time, she began to see that heartbreak had also granted her creative wings, a strange alchemy of pain and artistry. 2 months after the scandal erupted, the divorce proceedings were nearing completion. The major terms division of assets, philanthropic responsibilities were agreed upon. The final hearing was set for the following week. Olivia, though still wounded, felt a sense of closure approaching. She fantasized about the day she could sign the papers and finally walk away from the Sinclair chapter of her life. Her friend, Annika Monroe, suggested a short getaway to clear her mind. "You need a break from this city," Annika urged. "A change of scenery might spark new inspiration and help you heal." Olivia hesitated, but eventually agreed to a weekend retreat at a tranquil cabin in upstate New York. Tucked away amid tall pines and a shimmering lake, the cabin provided the solace she craved. No paparazzi, no city clamor, just the gentle rustle of leaves and the distant cry of loons. She sat on the porch, sipping tea, her notebook perched on her lap. For the first time in months, she felt her breathing slow, her mind quieting. On the second day, she decided to wander down a nearby trail, camera in hand, hoping to capture nature's beauty. She ambled along, pausing to photograph wild mushrooms and the sun filtering through the canopy. Rounding a bend, she nearly collided with someone coming from the opposite direction. Apologizing, she looked up to see a man with salt and pepper hair and a kind smile. He wore a flannel shirt and carried a walking stick. "Sorry," he said, stepping aside. "Didn't mean to startle you." "It's okay," Olivia replied, regaining her composure. They introduced themselves. He was Dr. Alan Brooks, a local veterinarian out for a hike. Something about his warm demeanor put Olivia at ease. They chatted about the area, nature photography, and how a break from city life did wonders for the soul. Sensing her sadness, Dr. Brooks gently inquired, "You seem like you're carrying a heavy heart. If you need a kind ear, I'm here." Surprised by his empathy, Olivia gave a small nod. She wouldn't spill her entire marital crisis to a stranger, but a brief conversation felt therapeutic. "It's been a challenging time," she admitted. He nodded sympathetically. "I've learned that sometimes we have to step away from the noise to find ourselves again. It's not running away, it's finding clarity." His words resonated. They strolled together for a bit, discussing life's twists. Olivia found herself smiling for the first time in weeks, as if the world held a bit more color. There was no romantic spark, she wasn't ready for anything like that, but a sense of human connection warmed her heart. After parting ways, she realized she felt lighter. Maybe there was a path forward, one that didn't revolve around her shattered marriage. Back in the city, Ethan grappled with his own remorse. He avoided Alicia Harrington, made some changes at work to distance himself from the marketing department she headed, and focused on stabilizing the company. Late at night, he perused the philanthropic proposals he and Olivia once championed, feeling a pang of regret for how he'd let arrogance overshadow the woman who'd stood by him. He discovered that one of their scholarship recipients, a young poet named Rachel Yates, had recently published a piece praising Olivia for her mentorship and generosity. "I owe my journey to Miss S. Olivia Sinclair," the poem read. "She believed in me when no one else did." Ethan felt tears prick his eyes, recalling how fiercely Olivia supported young talent. Where Alicia seemed driven by power, Olivia was motivated by compassion. In that moment, he realized just how badly he wanted to fix things. But the divorce was almost finalized, and he doubted Olivia would ever forgive him. The time for regret might have come too late. The day of the final divorce hearing dawned overcast, matching the somber tone of the occasion. Olivia arrived at the courthouse flanked by her attorney, Marcia Rowland, and her friend Annika. She wore a simple black dress, her hair neatly tied back, determined to project composure despite the inner turmoil. Ethan was already there, pacing the corridor, flanked by his legal team. He looked up when Olivia entered, his gaze filled with longing. She offered him a polite nod, nothing more. The bailiff called them into the courtroom, a modest space with wooden benches and scuffed floors far from the grand settings to which the Sinclairs were accustomed. Judge Lorraine Whitmore presided, her expression sympathetic yet firm. "We're here to finalize the dissolution of the Sinclair marriage," she began, reviewing the documents before her. Ethan and Olivia were asked to confirm the settlement terms, which included Olivia's retention of oversight for their philanthropic foundations, minimal spousal support that she insisted upon only for practical transitional reasons, and division of personal assets. Each answered with a measured "Yes, Your Honor," or "No, Your Honor," as appropriate. The judge took note of Olivia's desire to resume her maiden name, Mitchell, though she hadn't yet decided if she'd do so for professional reasons. Finally, Judge Whitmore fixed them both with a compassionate gaze. "I see many divorces come through this courtroom. It's always painful, but sometimes necessary. I hope in time you can both find peace." Ethan's lawyer signaled that Ethan wished to speak. The judge allowed it. He rose, voice quivering slightly, and addressed Olivia directly. "Olivia, I'm sorry. I know words can't mend what I've done, but I want you to know that I cherish every moment we had. And if there's anything I can do to help you, even after this, I will." The courtroom hushed. Olivia's eyes glistened, but her expression remained resolute. "Thank you," she managed softly. "I hope you find a way to be happy, Ethan. And I hope I will too." The judge nodded. "If there's no further business, I will grant the divorce, effective immediately." Court is adjourned. A single bang of the gavel sealed the end of their marriage. In that instant, Olivia felt both a crushing sadness and an odd relief. The bond she'd once treasured above all else was now officially severed. Ethan glanced at her, with regret etched into every line of his face, but said nothing more. Outside, paparazzi waited, eager for photos of the newly divorced billionaire couple. Security personnel shielded Olivia from the onslaught, guiding her and Annika into a waiting car. Inside the safety of tinted windows, Olivia finally allowed a sob to escape, tears rolling freely down her cheeks. "It's truly over," She felt a swirl of heartbreak and uncertain freedom. Meanwhile, Ethan retreated to his own limousine, the media snapping frantically. His driver navigated them away from the courthouse, but the cameras followed. Resting his head against the cool leather seat, Ethan closed his eyes. Despite the finality of the decree, his heart refused to accept it. He had signed the papers, but regret was a slow poison he knew he'd carry for a long time to come. Life carried on in the aftermath of the Sinclair divorce, but not without repercussions. For Olivia, days felt strangely open. She poured her energy into philanthropic projects and writing. The heartbreak lingered, but she found solace in finishing her manuscript, finally sending it to a publisher. Annika, along with a handful of supportive friends, encouraged her to keep moving forward. For Ethan, the separation marked a tumultuous period of self-reflection. He went through the motions of managing Sinclair Enterprises, but the spark that once fueled him had dimmed. Ironically, the board was pleased he'd severed ties with Alicia Harrington, whose reputation as a conniving figure had begun to surface. Rumors circulated that Alicia had tried to push for a senior executive role, only to be rebuffed by the board, who deemed her methods too aggressive. In fact, Alicia's downfall was swift. Other employees began speaking up about her manipulative behavior, pressure tactics, backhanded threats, and questionable expense reports. Under scrutiny, Alicia resigned, leaving Sinclair Enterprises in disgrace. She attempted to contact Ethan one last time, claiming to be a scapegoat. He refused to take her calls, wanting nothing more to do with the woman who had shattered his life. With Alicia's exit, Ethan hoped for some semblance of normalcy. But the penthouse remained a hollow shell, the atmosphere heavy with regrets. Sleep eluded him, and he often found himself pacing the halls at odd hours. Even driving by the places he once frequented with Olivia, a small cafe in Soho, the library branch they supported reopened old wounds. "This is what I deserve," he mused, acknowledging the pain as penance. In an effort to salvage a piece of his conscience, Ethan immersed himself in philanthropic work. He visited homeless shelters at night, donating discreetly. He volunteered time at a local youth center, remembering how Olivia loved working with children. But the more he tried to do good, the more he felt the weight of her absence. Each act reminded him of the partnership they once shared. Meanwhile, in Brooklyn, Olivia's emotional scars slowly healed. She kept in touch with Marcia Rowland, not for legal reasons but for advice on safeguarding her new independence. Her writing blossomed, and she tentatively started forging friendships outside her old circle. At times, she felt a phantom ache for Ethan's presence, recalling fleeting moments of genuine love. "I can't cling to those," she reminded herself. He betrayed that love. Neither of them realized that destiny still had some final threads to weave. A critical choice lay before them: remain trapped by bitterness, or find a path to forgiveness of themselves. If not necessarily of each other, months slipped by. Olivia received good news. A respected independent publisher accepted her poetry manuscript, praising the raw, emotional depth. Overjoyed, she dedicated the collection to her parents and to anyone who has ever loved and lost. She found a small sense of purpose in sharing her story through verse, hoping it might resonate with readers who had experienced betrayal. Meanwhile, Ethan began working with a career coach at the suggestion of the board. The coach, Maurice Jenkins, was a straightforward man who wasn't intimidated by powerful clients. He asked Ethan bluntly, "Are you prepared to remain stuck in regret, or do you want to find a healthier approach?" Caught off guard by the directness, Ethan admitted he was tired of his own self-pity. Maurice recommended personal counseling, something Ethan had never considered. Desperate for relief, Ethan agreed. Therapy sessions peeled back layers of guilt, reminding him that while he couldn't undo the past, he could learn from it. He realized how deeply he'd neglected his marriage in pursuit of success, then allowed desire and ambition to spiral into betrayal. During one session, the therapist asked, "Is there anything you'd like to say to Olivia, if you could?" Tears gathered in Ethan's eyes. "I'd tell her that I'm sorry. Not just for the affair, but for not cherishing her, for letting my ego overshadow our relationship. Then write it down," the therapist suggested. "Whether you send it to her or not, put your feelings on paper. Sometimes that's the first step toward closure." So Ethan wrote. For hours one evening, he poured raw honesty into a letter, how much he missed her smile, how her unwavering kindness used to center him, how he regretted chasing fleeting thrills instead of nurturing their love. He sealed it in an envelope and placed it in a drawer, uncertain whether to mail it. But the act alone felt like a tiny measure of catharsis. During this period, Olivia's poetry gained modest acclaim. She was invited to do a reading at a literary cafe in Manhattan. Nervous yet excited, she stood before a small audience, reciting verses that spoke of heartbreak, healing, and self-discovery. She fought back tears upon finishing, only to be met with applause. Among the clapping hands, she spotted a familiar figure, Clarissa Bingham, who beamed with pride. Later that night, as Olivia left the cafe, Clarissa approached her. "That was beautiful," she said. "I'm so proud of you. It takes courage to lay your soul bare." Olivia thanked her softly. Clarissa hesitated, then added, "I know you might not want to hear about Ethan, but I've seen him recently at a few events. He looks miserable, Liv, genuinely haunted." A pang of sympathy twisted in Olivia's chest, but she forced a small smile. "I appreciate your concern. I can't let myself dwell on him. It hurts too much." Clarissa nodded. "I understand. But if you ever want to talk about it, or if you need to know something, you can trust me." Olivia thanked her again, though she doubted she'd ever want more details. As she walked home in the crisp evening air, she realized that while the pain lingered, she no longer woke up every day feeling paralyzed by grief. She had grown stronger. Perhaps that was the best closure she could hope for. Fate, however, often has a knack for orchestrating unexpected meetings. One afternoon, Olivia was at the Sinclair Mitchell Scholarship office. She had retained a role overseeing its direction even after the divorce. A new batch of students was being considered, and Olivia's input remained invaluable. While reviewing applications, the receptionist buzzed in. "Missed in. Mitchell, Ethan Sinclair is here to discuss the scholarship's budget." Heart-pounding, Olivia composed herself. She couldn't refuse him. It was as much his scholarship as hers. Steeling her nerves, she agreed to see him, reminding herself to remain professional. Ethan entered, looking weary but sincere. He offered a small, uncertain smile. "Thank you for seeing me." She gestured to a chair. "Let's keep this brief." "What do you need?" He swallowed. "The board suggested raising the scholarship fund, given our improved financial outlook. I wanted to get your thoughts." He handed her a detailed proposal. She scanned it, forcing herself to ignore the memories that threatened to resurface. Their meeting was uncomfortably cordial, strictly business, with neither acknowledging the emotional landmines between them. When they concluded the formalities, Ethan lingered. "I'm glad you're still involved here," he said softly. "Your passion for these students was always inspiring." She nodded curtly. "It was important to me." A pause stretched. He looked at her with an expression of longing mixed with regret. "Olivia, I know it's not my place, but could we possibly talk sometime? Properly?" Her heart thumped in her chest. She recalled the betrayal, the tears, the humiliating photos. The old wounds ached. Yet she also remembered the sound of his laughter, the way he'd gently tuck a stray hair behind her ear. "No," she told herself, "this conversation changes nothing." She responded, voice steady, "I don't think that's a good idea." He gave a hollow nod. "I understand." Rising, he left quietly, leaving behind the faintest trace of cologne she once found comforting. That night, Olivia wrestled with conflicting emotions. She yearned to move forward, yet felt a curious pang at the thought of Ethan's haunted eyes. She told herself it was just residual attachment after all. You can't spend years loving someone and then feel nothing. But she also reminded herself how deeply he'd hurt her. At the same time, Ethan sat in his penthouse, the letter he'd written to Olivia in his hands. He contemplated mailing it, or perhaps handing it to her directly. But a suffocating fear of rejection held him back. Instead, he stowed it away again, uncertain if they'd ever speak freely about their heartbreak. Weeks turned into months, and life progressed. Olivia's poetry collection, Scars and Sunrises, launched, garnering heartfelt reviews. She traveled for small readings, finding a world of supportive fellow writers and grateful readers. Each appearance reminded her of her capacity to rebuild, to stand on her own. Ethan, while regaining control at Sinclair Enterprises, carried regret like a permanent scar. He expanded the scholarship program significantly in Olivia's honor, though it felt hollow without her enthusiastic partnership. He continued therapy, attempting to find meaning in his mistakes. You can only atone by becoming a better man, his therapist often reminded him. From a distance, they each tried to find new normalcy. Occasionally, Olivia would hear about Ethan's philanthropic gestures, or she'd see a social media post featuring him at a youth center ribbon cutting. On rare occasions, their paths crossed at charity events, but they maintained polite distances. A few times, fleeting eye contact occurred, a silent acknowledgement of what once was, and what was forever lost. Eventually, the question of Alicia Harrington faded from public discourse. She'd vanished from high society, rumored to be working for a smaller firm overseas. The scandal had died down, replaced by the next wave of sensational headlines. Olivia was grateful for the reprieve, relieved that the world had moved on. And then came a day cold and drizzly when Olivia was heading to a meeting about the Scholarship Foundation. She parked near a quiet downtown street and began walking, umbrella in hand, lost in thought. Suddenly, she heard a familiar voice calling her name. She turned to see Ethan jogging through the drizzle, no umbrella, hair plastered to his forehead. "Olivia," he gasped, slightly out of breath. "I saw your car. Please just give me 1 minute." Her instincts told her to keep walking, but something made her pause. Raindrops pattered around them, the city a grey blur. She waited, silent, as he caught up. He took a moment to steady himself, blinking away rain. "I've been wanting to talk to you for so long," he said, voice raw. "I know I have no right to ask, but can we get coffee? Just coffee, to talk." She searched his eyes, seeing genuine contrition. Memories of his betrayal still flared, but time had softened her rage, leaving behind an ache that had begun to mend. With a sigh, she answered, "All right. 1 coffee." They ducked into a nearby cafe, shaking off water. Settling at a small table by the window, they ordered cappuccinos, a shared memory of simpler times. He looked at her, voice trembling. "You look well." "I'm glad." She nodded, swirling her cup. "I'm doing better. I've been writing, traveling a bit, rebuilding." He fiddled with his jacket zipper. "Anxious." "I'm glad," he repeated. "I never wanted to see you destroyed. He stopped, struggling for words. "I just want you to know. I regret everything." She studied him, noticing the darkness beneath his eyes and the subdued manner that replaced his once cocky confidence. "I believe you," she said quietly, "but regret doesn't fix the past." He nodded, pain etched on his face. "I know. If I could turn back time." "You can't," she interjected, though her tone was gentler than before. "We both have to live with what happened." They sipped coffee in silence for a moment, the warmth offering fleeting comfort. Ethan cleared his throat. "I'm not asking for forgiveness or for you to come back, but I wanted to apologize properly. I was selfish and foolish. You deserved so much better." Olivia's throat tightened. She thought of how deeply she once loved him, how she believed they'd grow old together. Despite her heartbreak, she found herself saying softly, "Thank you for saying that." Rain continued tapping on the window as they spoke, unhurriedly revisiting old wounds. She shared how devastated she felt receiving those photos, how betrayed and humiliated. He listened, tears in his eyes, acknowledging every failure. He confessed that he'd let ambition cloud his judgment, that Alicia's cunning flattery exploited his weaknesses. In the end, they both wept quietly, a strange mix of sorrow and relief filling the space. Neither expected reconciliation. Olivia's heart had moved on, forging a new life, but the conversation offered a measure of closure, a chance to speak truths unfiltered by anger or guilt. When they finished, Ethan wiped his eyes, a shaky smile forming. "Thank you for letting me say all of this. I hope you find happiness." She exhaled slowly, feeling a weight lift from her chest. "I hope you do too, Ethan." They parted outside, the rain having eased to a drizzle. He offered a tentative handshake, which she met with a bittersweet smile. Then they walked in opposite directions, each stepping into a future forever shaped by a past that couldn't be undone. Even the glimmer of unimaginable wealth can't shield a marriage from the brutal truth of betrayal. In the aftermath of scandalous affair photos sent by a cunning mistress, Olivia Mitchell divorced her billionaire husband, Ethan Sinclair, in a torrent of heartbreak. Yet the pain became a catalyst for both of them. Olivia found solace in her poetry, rekindled her spirit, and forged a new path. Ethan confronted the hollow consequences of his ambition, grappling with remorse that no fortune could erase. While they parted ways, a single, rainy day conversation allowed them to release old grudges and acknowledge their shared past with honesty. Sometimes, closure arrives not as a neat, happy ending, but as a fragile acceptance of what's lost and a whispered hope for what still lies ahead. If you were moved by this tale of heartbreak, regret, and resilience, please like this video, share it with friends who love a good drama, and subscribe to our channel for more stories that explore the powerful bonds and breaks of the human heart. Thank you for watching.